Two losses in a row for the Boston Celtics. Some of the same old problems, maybe a new one. We'll talk about that all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, Heat John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and I got you every day. Free, fresh podcast is directly to your device if you subscribe. I'm here Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts. You're going to get podcasts Friday night, Saturday night after the Celtics play this weekend. I'm podcasting all month long, like 2 podcast days off all month long. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube, all that good stuff. I'm John Karalis. I used to play a long time ago. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. If you're new to the podcast, I'd like to introduce myself to all the new people. All you regular listeners, you know who I am. I want to thank Jase Medical for sponsoring today's show. Empower yourself with the purchase of a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that can treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Today, we're talking about the Celtics 106-103 loss to the Sixers. Later on, I'll get into the stuff that I liked, because when you lose, you start talking about the bad stuff first. But they made a big comeback and they almost won this game or tied this game, which improbably. In the second segment, I'll get into the question, like, what do they have a problem with the shot blockers? Is a dominant big, and this is, they're dominant bigs for a reason. They give everybody problems, but is this going to be an issue for Boston? Talk about that. But let's just start with, why did they lose this game? Why did they really lose this game? The Celtics lost at 106-103. Let's just start right away in the second quarter. Second quarter, Joe Mazzulla highlighted it after the game. The second quarter was where this thing, I think, fell apart. And so they start the second quarter with Jayson Tatum and a bench unit. And Joel Embiid is sitting. And I'm thinking, and the Celtics actually started out the second quarter building their lead. They came out, Tatum gets to the rim, Hauser hits a 3, Horford hits a 3. They get up by 11. And I'm thinking, at that point, we're about 2 minutes into this game, and I'm thinking into the second quarter, and I'm literally getting ready to type, this is really smart to have Tatum start the second quarter. The Tatum plus bench units are really good. And Embiid is on the bench. So now you've got Tatum being able to get to the rim. Then you've got, because they're going to overreact to him getting to the rim, he's going to be able to spray it. This is great. I'm thinking the Celtics are going to build a nice 15 to even 20-point lead at the beginning of the second quarter. They're going to force some timeouts. They're going to force Embiid to play more minutes, which means he's going to be gassed later. I'm thinking this is the formula. This is perfect. When Embiid comes back in and Jayson Tatum needs to sit down, then you've got basically your starters minus Tatum lineup, and that lineup does well. And it just all made sense. It all made sense. And then it all started to fall apart. The Celtics gave up offensive rebounds. They gave up transition buckets. It felt like every time the Celtics went to the rim or did something, they missed, they fell. Maybe they got fouled, but it didn't get called. And if it doesn't get called, it's not a foul. They couldn't get back, and they gave up transition buckets. Meanwhile, on the other end, whenever Philly missed, somebody was fouling it up with a putback dunk. That was what the second quarter was. The Celtics gave up 8 second chance points in the second quarter. They gave up, 5 offensive rebounds in the second quarter. The Celtics turned it over 3 times. So on top of shooting 9 for 23 in the second quarter and giving up a lot of the runs off of misses. They turn the ball over another 3 times, and all of those lead to points. So all of those are live ball turnovers. The Sixers put up 28 shots in the second quarter. They hit 15 of them. They were 5 of 8 from 3. They got to the line 5 times and were 4 of 5. It was just a bloodbath in the second quarter. Boston was outscored by 12. And in the third quarter, it wasn't a whole lot better. Boston was outscored 20-17. They still shot like absolute crap in the second quarter, which is definitely at the top of the list of things I didn't like in this game. Boston's shooting, hey, rough shooting night, right? It's going to happen. But giving up so many transition buckets off of that, it took them till the end of the fourth quarter to actually finally recover from what they did in the second quarter. Joe made a great point. Joe Mazzulla made a great point after the game where he said, you look at these games, these close games in the fourth, and they're almost never lost in the fourth. They are almost always lost somewhere earlier in the game. And this second quarter was where this game was lost. Now, it's going to be tough for the Celtics to overcome some things here that just sometimes it's just not your night, right? Like there are very simple things when we look at this and you say, well, what are you going to do? Jayson Tatum shot 6 of 14. How do you only get 14 shots? That's nuts. 16 points for Jayson Tatum. Hey, 15 rebounds and 6 assists. That's amazing. 15 rebounds. Great. Get out there chomping glass. But you're not going to win a ton of games if you're the Boston Celtics with Jayson Tatum getting 16 points on 14 shots. Jaylen Brown, 11 points on 13 shots. It was just a rough shooting night all around. And then Derek White shows up at the arena at like 4:00. He's probably gotten no sleep. Lord knows, he just had a baby. It's been crazy for him. Of course, he's not going to have the best shooting night. 6 of 18, 3 of 11 from 3, 19 points. If you just get a normal night from Brown and Tatum and Derek White, you can sit there and argue like, yeah, that alone gets you at least, it makes it a close game throughout and not down anywhere from 5 to 11 and 14 at one point in the fourth quarter. So that is definitely one of the reasons why they lost. If you don't give up all of those offensive rebounds and second chance points, Boston outscored by 7 in second chance points, 19-12. The Sixers got 56 points in the paint. That's not a recipe to win. The Celtics outscored fast break points 24-19. It just was a lot of preventable stuff. If they just box out, they get something. So the rebounding was an issue. Bench was an issue outside of Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser, nice bounce back game. 5 of 8, 3 of 6 from 3. Al Horford still adjusting to the bench role. That's something that Al is going to have to figure out. This is going to be like you're a pro, you're a veteran. You got to figure this out. The 1 for 6 from 3, not good enough. And Al Horford being a minus 23, absolutely not good enough. Peyton Pritchard, 0 of 4, another 0 for Peyton Pritchard. The bench, we knew rebounding was going to be an issue. We knew the bench was going to be an issue, and it continues to be. That's something that they either have to fix or Brad Stevens is going to have to fix. That is just how this goes. This is, like I said before, so much of this is just simply make a few shots, get good performances from your great players, and you win. Box out, you win. Get some good performances from your bench, you win. Philly's a good team. Philly's a really good team. And Tyrese Maxey, the fourth quarter that he had, that was elite. He's on a path to make an all-NBA team. I think he now might be one of the front runners for most improved. Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid together, that's a hell of a duo. And Tobias Harris, not the best game here. Kelly Oubre they're a good team. Philly's a good team. So they're going to be tough. And Boston needs to be better. Did you know that Peyton Pritchard has made one field goal in 4 road games? That's He's got one good game against Indiana. The rest has been very, very difficult. He needs to find himself. He needs to find that shot. Sorry, you got to perform. You got to perform. I know it's a slump, and I'm not saying like you're not going to get the time to perform, but you got to perform. You got to do it. The bench needs to play. The bench needs to come in and give them a spark. That's just the end of the story. Up next, okay, what's this deal with shot blockers? I know shot blockers are supposed to be disruptive, but this disruptive? I'll talk about that next. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked for this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Here are a few of the names here. Jordan Hawkins in New Orleans as they deal with injuries. Bismack Biyombo, who could fill in as Xavier Tillman deals with knee soreness. Brandon Miller in Charlotte as Terry Rozier recovers from a groin injury. Denny Avia in Washington's an interesting one because I've seen him twice. Washington's terrible. They need somebody to shoot. They need somebody to score, and he's definitely capable. He's upped his usage this season and is definitely going to be a starter, and he's shooting right now at career best levels. I think that's sustainable. And Dylan Brooks, who his shooting is probably unsustainable, but Ime Udoka is playing him a bunch. And this is why I think Dylan Brooks is the guy. If he's available, he could be a very valuable fantasy add for your team, because is there any better fit on an Ime Udoka team than Dylan Brooks? I just feel like Ime loves a guy like Dylan and his attitude. And I think Brooks kind of loves being coached by Ime. I think that's just a guy that Ime is going to latch onto and play a bunch. And you need minutes in fantasy. So I think Brooks, if he's available, is a guy you should probably pick up. Josh Lloyd from the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. I'm going to be out shopping for a Jeep, one of those old Jeep Wranglers. I know it's going to need parts, and I know that when I need a part, I'm going to go to eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA next. I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison, but the rotating hosts all week long have you covered in a fun, entertaining podcast that covers the league. Get it wherever you get this podcast. All right, let's get into my big question here is, are the Celtics going to be more adversely affected by these big shot blockers? Is this going to be a big problem for Boston? Because there is a little bit of a trend here. The elite rim protectors, I think the exception would be Miles Turner in the Indiana game where nothing went right. I mean, that was just this demolition from the beginning. So maybe that doesn't even, it didn't even matter what he would have done. But against Miami with Bam Adebayo, who is like a perennial defensive player of the year guy, they struggled at the rim. Against Minnesota, obviously they struggled in the paint, and against Philly they struggled everywhere. And it's kind of funny, after the game it sounded like Joe was being sincere about the he's like, we need to teach our bigs to not move in the paint and just stand there or whatever. He said, I thought Joel Embiid did a great job just standing in the paint and forcing us to kick the ball out. And he was complaining that Joel Embiid, it was a sly, sarcastic, deadpan complaint that Joel Embiid wasn't getting out of the paint. But regardless, the Celtics have to make these bigs pay. Now, it's not a concern as of yet. And also, we understand, like, Rudy Gobert, if you're going to let him stay in around the rim, yeah, he's going to protect the rim. If Joel Embiid is staying around the rim and not being pulled away, yeah, he's going to protect the rim. Same thing with Bam Adebayo. You got to pull these guys away from the rim, and that's part of the issue here. I said this in the last podcast when we were talking about the Minnesota game. These guys need to learn how to play with Porzingis. Porzingis needs to be out there involved in the play. He needs to be a part of now, Porzingis had the best game of everybody. 10 of 19, 2 of 6 from 3. Ooh, it should have been 3 of 6. But he left that one short. But 29 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He was in some foul trouble, but he had an overall really good game. But he just needs to be more involved overall. He has to pull Embiid away from the rim. You have to run a high pick and roll with Porzingis. You have to get him out there and spread the floor. You have to force Embiid to step up and then run some actions behind him. Get some cutters going behind him. Do something. This is part of the learning curve. This is part of these guys playing together, part of them learning how to play together. They have to figure out, okay, we've got 2 games of evidence here, 2 in a row, where we probably didn't use our big guy who can space the floor in exactly the right way. Because if you just have him standing in the corner, then they can switch somebody else onto him, and Embiid can just say, I'm going to guard Drew Holiday, or I'm going to guard whoever else. Have him guard Peyton Pritchard. Have him guard like whomever else he needs to guard to kind of help off and not worry too much about it. So I feel like they just need to find a way. Like, oh, is Embiid starting on somebody else? Well, put that person in a pick and roll. Do something. Have that person run some off-ball stuff. Do something that involves Embiid's attention, that requires Embiid's attention. I thought it was super interesting, by the way. Let me just side note. Drew Holiday guarding Embiid, that was really good, actually. They need to tweak that a little bit. They weren't really, I think, the timing was off on the help. I'll put it that way. I think the timing was off on the help, and they were able to get a run together in the first quarter, guarding Embiid with Holiday, and so that was it's been an interesting wrinkle having Holiday there guarding bigs and trying to be trying to involve some help from the other side. To you either dare them to let's get some post ups. Let's see if they're going to post up this guy, and then you get some late help. Try to spin him. You're right. You're trying to lean on Embiid a certain way so he can spin, and you can send the help from that direction. The timing's just got to be right. But on the flip side, he has to be pulled away from the play. You just can't have that be that disruptive, because the Celtics, when they need a bucket, all season long they've been talking about, we can post up and get a bucket. But you can't post up Porzingis against Embiid. You can't post up Porzingis against Rudy Gobert. That's not the case. That's not going to be where he's most effective. So what do? You find a way to space the floor, but involve him in the action, so you get a post up with somebody else. You get a mid-range shot with somebody else. The Celtics struggled against Philly in every manner, but I think if they had a little bit more discipline to pull Embiid away and get themselves some 2-point shots, some good, comfortable shots, maybe this would have been a little bit different. Regardless, they did manage a comeback. They were done. It was a 14-point game. It was over. They still managed to come back. Let's talk about that comeback when I come back. Today's show brought to you by Jase Medical. And we can talk frankly here, right? Jase Medical has added, in addition to a lot of the things that they've offered before with the antibiotics, they now offer a 1-year supply on ED medications. And you know what that means? You can bring on extended travel. You can bring on the next winter storm that has you stranded. You can bring on the next supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra. It's possible because of our friends at Jase Medical. Go online right now, jasemedical.com. Receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jase. I'm thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half in order to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered to you. JASE medical.com. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about that Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast? That's a great one. Go check that out wherever you get your podcasts. The Celtics were down 104-90 with 2:23 to go. 104-90 with 2:23 to go. And I thought, time to start writing my recap. Time to start writing this. And they came back and had a chance to tie this up. So a couple of things in here. First of all, shout out to Jaylen Brown for sticking with it. And at that point, he was what? 0 for 5 from 3. And he ends up 2 of 7 from 3 because he hits the 3-pointer that makes you go, okay, it's an 11-point game. Then Porzingis hits a shot. You're like, oh, okay. Gets fouled. Couple of free throws from Derek White. You're like, well, wait a second. It's a minute to go, and it's a 7-point game. You say, okay. Tatum gets the steal and lays it in, and all of a sudden, this is serious. Huge shot by Joel Embiid with 40 seconds left. And now here comes the other thing I wanted to touch on. The timeouts. This scenario is exactly what Joe Mazzulla is talking about when he says he wants to keep those 2 timeouts. The 2 timeouts helped at that point. So you can sit there and argue he should have called a timeout when they made it 104-90. Maybe you call a timeout, or maybe you call a timeout at some point earlier on to say, let's make one last run. And by keeping the timeouts, it was a little easier in this scenario, but by having the timeouts in the last, both timeouts in these last 2 minutes and saving them for this particular situation, he's able to get the Celtics in position to tie the game. So, like, Joe Mazzulla, whether you agree with the timeout thing or not, this worked perfectly for him. This is exactly the scenario that he's talking about. Embiid hits that shot. Now you're looking for a stop. You're hoping for a stop there. But Embiid hits the shot. It's 40 seconds left. Celtics call a timeout. It's 39 seconds, right? So now at 39 seconds, you call one timeout. You now have about 8 seconds or so to get a 3-pointer off and still get yourself an opportunity to tie the game. If you hit the 3, now you don't have to foul. You don't have to play the foul game. So Jaylen Brown comes in and sticks it. Shout out to Jaylen Brown again for keeping that confidence up. Huge. Okay, he had a bad shooting night, had a bad game. But down the stretch, they needed a couple of shots, and there he is. Boom. Two 3-pointers. Now, at 33, you don't have to foul, because if you get a stop, you have a timeout in your pocket. It's a 24-second shot clock. So now you have the potential for, at the very least, if you force a 24-second violation, you still have 9 seconds left. You call a timeout, you advance it. So they get a blocked shot with 11 seconds left, a missed shot. They get it back. It's a missed. It is a 24-second violation. And there you are. That's the exact scenario. 9 seconds left. Boom. Call the timeout. Celtics draw up the play. They get a great look for Porzingis. Now, people are saying, why didn't Tatum get the ball? I see it, and I'm reacting to Twitter. There are people who are going to say, why didn't Tatum get the ball? But there are just as many people who, when Tatum takes all the final shots, like I will say, he's not the only one who can take a final shot. Yes, Tatum, your first option. Jaylen is a good option. Porzingis is a good option. Holiday is a good option. Derek White is a good option. So they couldn't get it to Tatum. They couldn't get it to Brown. Derek White gets it into Porzingis. Porzingis up fakes, steps into it. Beautiful, clean look. Left it short. But everything worked perfectly. Everything worked perfectly. When Joe Mazzulla is saying, this is why you keep your timeouts, he's going to reference this game every single time because it worked exactly like he says he wants it to work. You get that timeout with 39 seconds on the clock. You draw up a 2-for-1. You hit it. You get a stop. You call a timeout. You drop another play. You get yourself a good look. Porzingis says after the game, says he shot it like a mid-range shot, which means he jumped too much. Kind of interesting that because he jumped too much and he shot it differently. He said as he left it, as he shot it, he kind of felt like it was going to be short. And that's a shame. He had perfect look. You cannot complain about that look. You absolutely cannot complain about that look. Tatum was covered. Brown was covered. That look from Porzingis is a shot that he hits plenty of times. And with nobody on him, absolutely clean look. At that point, it's just make or miss. It's just make or miss. And he missed. So I give the Celtics credit for making that comeback. I give Jaylen Brown credit for making those two massive, massive threes. I give the Celtics defense credit for the stops that they got, especially that 24-second violation at the end. Just wonderful defense. I guess the number one thing you say after that is, well, where was that earlier? And that's true. Where was that earlier? But that was still great. And the coaching, the timeout usage was perfect. So they almost pulled that off, man. If they had won that game, that would have been like in Boston, that loss is like, man, that sucks. Oh, well, moving on. Like they've got things to figure out. They've totally got things to figure out. Spent 2 segments of this podcast saying that. But if Philly were to lose that, if they were to collapse and lose that, it would have been mushroom cloud over the Wells Fargo Center because it would have happened to Boston again. It's happened to Boston. Oh my God. So, but like I said, Philly's a good team and now they're in first place and Boston is behind them. Not a big deal. Obviously 7 games into the season. This is adversity. The Celtics are facing adversity. How do they handle it? We'll see. I'm back tomorrow with a new podcast. Tom Westerholm will join me tomorrow. So make sure you're tuned into that. We'll kind of recap some of this stuff a little bit, get deeper into it. And then I got podcasts after Friday's game against Brooklyn, after Saturday's game. They're playing 3 games in a row at home. I'm podcasting through it all. I've got you covered with the podcast. So make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Comment in that comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. And if you are an everydayer, if you're with me Monday through Friday, I love you. Thank you so much. Now, please share the podcast, spread the word, tell your friends that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast. It's right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.